I'm speaking to Val Gilman, who has recently been elected the City Council President in the City of Gloucester. Hi, Val. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Heather?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
I'd like to ask you about your to-do list, but first, I want to talk about legislating in a pandemic. So we are in the middle of this terrible spike in the Omicron virus, and you just had your first socially distanced and masked inauguration for the City of Gloucester. But is this different than March of 2020? And what I mean is, do you know how to legislate in a pandemic this time around? Does it feel that way?
Well, we've introduced Zoom technology, which is really has been a differentiator that has allowed us to continue with our meetings so we could just have that momentum to run the city. So we have that right now, and we were hoping to consider a hybrid model, which is our goal. So that would be offering both Zoom and being present. But because the rates are so high right now at 476 active cases in Gloucester, we decided to just kind of slow down the need to be present and to continue Zoom right now. So that's what we will be doing. But our goal is to do a hybrid model because we believe that there were some great things about Zoom. People love having meetings recorded. People love being able to see them the next day if they missed it. Those are all benefits of where we are today, where we weren't on March 2020. So that's basically my feeling about the difference between 2 years ago and today.
Yeah, right. So, uh, but I'm guessing there has to be a little bit less just terror. Like, where are we going? How do we do this? Do you feel that when you look back, or not so much? It's scary
Well,
now. The
it
numbers
is,
are really scary.
it is scary, but I think now people know what they need to do to keep themselves safe, right? So we know what choices we have to make. You know, in Gloucester, 80% of us are vaccinated and boosted, which is great. And that's, I think the state is 82%, so we're pretty close.
Mm.
So what I feel very passionate about, and I recently was able to get the IT department working with the Director of Public Health, Max Shank, to be able to place a hyperlink on the front of our Gloucester website. And that's an easy way that members of the public can just go on www.gloucester-ma.gov. And at the very top, it says COVID numbers. You hit that, and then you get the weekly rates. And we want people to be able to see that so they know how they need to protect themselves. So if people have immune issues and are very concerned, if they have asthma, if they haven't been vaccinated, then people need to make choices. And I think that that's been a useful tool, and it's recently been updated as of about a week. So it just makes it easier for people in the community to go and find the information.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. So let's talk about the new mayoral administration. What does it mean for you as the city council president to be working with a new administration, if anything?
Well, fortunately for me, I worked closely with Greg Berger my first year on the school committee, which was 2007, 2008. Greg was actually the chair, and I was a newbie. So I know how Greg operates. I know he's a process thinker, as am I, which is really good. And I know his sense of humor, and I know how to work with him. So that really helps me feel comfortable working with Greg. And I think the biggest issues for us as a council is just to be clear with the new administration about the city charter issues and our expectations. And already Greg has reached out to me and said, you know, we've got these things coming up, Val. Can you just help make sure that we're doing everything correctly? Which is really a good feeling, because the legislative branch, which is us and the city council, and the executive branch have to be clear on their expectations with each other. And if we can be clear with that, proactively, then we won't be having hiccups if something is a little bit off. We'll know exactly what the expectations are, and things like appointments and reorganizations. What is it that we expect? How do you do it? How do you present it on the consent agenda so it gets referred to O&A, B and F? What the actual city charter says. And that's something that we've been working out in the last couple of days, is to be very clear with those expectations. So that will help the process, which, being a new mayor, I really appreciate the fact that he wants to get the process perfect.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're setting that up right now. So I'm proud of that progress, even in the last couple of days. So that's good.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to break down an issue in the context of this process for me.
Okay.
So zoning, the decisions about zoning are going to be, the city council is addressing this, right? The planning board has presented you with these options. Is that how we would say it?
There are 9 amendments to existing zoning, and they want us to take up those 9 recommendations from the planning board.
And at the inauguration, the Mayor Verga did comment on the need for zoning changes and how he thinks, addressing housing in the city is important. So what will happen? But it seems like this is a city council issue, really. Is that right?
It is.
Yeah. So
the amendments to the zoning, the Gloucester zoning code comes under our purview.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So what we will be doing tomorrow night at our first meeting, and I can introduce our subcommittee now because
please, sure. Yeah.
So Jason Grow is going to chair it. And, he's a former city councilor and he's chaired subcommittees before. I'm going to stay on that as the vice chair, and I've been the chair for the last 4 years. And Tracy O'Neill, who is our Ward 2 city councilor, she is going to be the 3rd member. And in trying to anticipate how our committees were going to look, Sean Nolan and I, who is now the vice chair, we kind of knew how the subcommittees were going to feel and look and who was going to be in them. So I've already had a training session with both Jason and with Tracy on all the different types of special council permits and permitting and poll petitions that come forward to the P&D standing committee before they even became inaugurated.
And explain P&D for us. Just
planning and development is, there are 3 of us, and we oversee special council permits, any general zoning, poll petitions with National Grid, special events where something like a street has to be closed because of an event in the city. So we get involved with that. Issues like when we do a conservation partnership of city property, that has to come in front of us as well. So those 5 issues are kind of the highlights. And so that's good. So Tracy and Jason are really ready to hit the ground running. I think I'm comfortable with that. And tomorrow night, we're going to hear from Greg Catamatore on these 9 votes. And then our job is going to be make sure that all of the questions are answered. We want to make sure that there's been a lot of emails coming forward from members of the public. We want to make sure that as P&D, we are very comfortable answering all the questions that come forward. So we're going to allow the public to give us those questions, but we're hoping that they'll zoom in tomorrow night and be able to hear the presentation, because this is the first time our new city council has heard this. Now, Jason, Tracy, and I have all watched the Zoom meeting, so we know what was discussed in front of the planning board last December and October and November. We've seen that. So that's the benefit of Zoom. We've been able to just sit in and get up to date. But then this is the first brand new package in front of the city council. So we're going to make sure that we get it, we understand it, all of our questions are answered. And then it might be 2, 3, 4 meetings that it takes us in planning and development before we're ready to make a vote to the full council.
Great.
And then what happens in the meantime is that we have to open up the public hearing in our major meetings and continue it. Because if we're not ready, if we don't have our vote to make, then we're not ready. So the public will have to wait for the public hearing so we can make sure that we've done our due diligence.
So they can watch the presentation tomorrow on Zoom, and we are actually, this will air after this presentation. So
Okay. Well, then they can just go on to where it says public meetings on the website, and
right.
you can scroll down and you can see our recording, and it will be live as early as Thursday morning, January 6th, the day after.
Great.
So that's
great.
the benefit. So that's what we always ask people to do. There's no better way to get caught up. Minutes are one thing, but seeing the actual presentation on Zoom is a differentiator for the public and for elected officials in our boards and commissions. So
it's so helpful. I really agree to watch these meetings over Zoom. So even if you miss the meeting, which you, if you're watching this, you have missed it, you can find it on gloucestermass.gov, that site, and go to public meetings. Right.
Yep. And there's, when you first look on the website, there are 8 hyperlinks.
Right.
Hit the one in the bottom right, it says public meetings. And then right off, you'll see past remote meetings, and you'll see January past remote meetings. And you can just go right on and it goes right into Zoom.
Great.
Really,
excuse me.
No.
Okay. Do you have any sense of when the last time radical, if you want to say radical, maybe serious zoning changes happened in the city?
Oh.
These might not be radical, but they are intended to shift the housing picture here, right?
Yeah. We haven't had a lot of big ones of recent. So this is probably in my tenure, my 6 years on the city council, this will be probably the largest, because it kind of spans many different parts of zoning. And it was based very much on the housing production plan. Okay. So a lot of this is to kind of take the stuff in the housing production plan and understand what we can do in zoning to help facilitate. Great. So there will be 9, and we'll look at each one of them on its unique merits and make sure that we have questions about best practices and what other municipalities do. Some people are talking a lot about the 35 feet height by right. Right now it's 30. And so people are asking, well, what do the other communities do? And those are the types of questions that we would be asking.
Well, so just to summarize this week, what is on your to-do list right now?
Well, the first thing was the appointments. And even though you kind of have a feel for where you might want to put people, and before January 1st, some things get a little bit more complicated. Maybe there's a scheduling person that someone now has that didn't have it initially, and things like that. So pulling that together was kind of a monumental task. And so that's out and it's published now. So it's on the city website, so you can see what our standing committees look like.
Great.
Just to let you know, Jason Grow is chairing P&D, and I'm the second member, and Tracy is the third. I already said that. And then BNF, Scott Memard is going to be chairing that, and Tony Gross will be the vice chair, and Jeff Worthley will be the third member. Okay. And then Ordinance and Administration, Sean Nolan will continue chairing that. He's done that before, which is great. And on his team will be Jamie O'Hara, who's been on O&A for 6 years now. Yeah. And we have a new face in Frank Margiotta. He'll be the third member. Frank is a ward counselor. Ordinance and Administration is really very pertinent for a ward council, particularly one that's very much downtown, because there's a lot of issues of orders coming through that particular subcommittee. So I'm really comfortable with the balance that we have on our city council right now. And that's been a
Nice.
major issue. And then there are appointments to make to boards and commissions. And that's a matter of hearing what people want and what we can accommodate. And that's been on the docket as well. And then we're setting up a governance meeting later in January where the new counselors, all of us as a group, just get together to talk about governance, how we work, how the difference between a ward counselor and a city counselor at large, and how we can partner and support each other, and lessons learned. And we'll be going back to some of the minutes and meeting governances that we've had in January of 2020. That was the last one we had in the former council. And I've asked to take a look at the agenda from that and then see how we want to move forward with making sure that everyone's questions are answered. It's all about being up to, we're going to have a lot coming in front of us. The zoning is a huge matter. And it was my feeling back last December, as well as our past P&D department or standing committee, that we wanted to wait until the new counselor was in. So that's a decision that we deliberately made, which I think is wise.
And
So
has there been, have you been sort of doing crash courses with these 5 new counselors on getting them up to speed? Has that been?
well, the former council president, per the charter, he has that responsibility. So he had a meeting with the 5 new counselors and went through a lot of the standard stuff.
Okay.
I added an additional session before, just to help the 2 P&D counselors, just to make sure that we had that extra technical parts of special counsel permits. And so we've had that as well. And the charter also asks that they have 4 months of minutes to have.
Right.
And with Zoom and everything online, you really don't need hard copies in a little packet, but
Right.
so those things have to happen. So we have done that.
We talked to Tracy O'Neill just before the holiday, and she was going off to visit her son, I believe in Thailand, and she had the city charter packed in her bag, and she would be reading it on those long flights.
Yeah, Tracy's back and she's really happy, and she shared her experience spending time with her 3-year-old grandson, and they had a ball together, which was really nice. And she's ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah, she seemed it.
2 counselors that are brand new, that have never been a council before, both Frank Margiotti and Tracy O'Neill.
Right.
And we all want to help them, and they're very conscientious. They want to be prepared. They know what they need to do to be prepared. And I'm very confident that they're going to be great additions to our council.
Great. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us today. And
so quick, I always want to talk too much longer.
Well, I fear that we'll keep you too long, but I would love to catch up with you after this governance meeting, and you can teach us some governance rules, rules and whatever we need to know, and tell us how it all went. Okay.
Terrific. I'd love to do that. I'd love to make this ongoing, because I think the world of you and Corey. So thank you.
Thank you. And Corey is sorry he couldn't be here today. So
it's okay.
Okay, I'll tell him.
It's good to see you, Heather. Happy New Year.
Phil. Same to you. Thanks again. Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.